Hey folks, Dave here with VTT Performance. Today you join me in my home shop and we're going to be doing an R34 Motorsports rear sway bar install on my A3. Why would you do a rear sway bar in your Mark 5 or Mark 6? Well, I've got a Mark 6 GTI, and ever since I bought the car, I felt like the turn-in, when you turn into a corner, there was always a little delay. It wasn't quite as responsive, so you turn in, there'd be a little bit of body roll, and then the car would hook up and go around the corner. That car has a lot of suspension modifications already, but no matter what I did, there was always just a little bit of a delay on turn-in. And it was a little bit vague, like you'd turn in and you'd have to turn the wheel just a little bit more than you wanted to before the car kind of hooked up and went around the corner. It's a front-wheel drive car, and they're always prone to a little bit of understeer. That's how they come from the factory. But I could never quite get the responsiveness I wanted out of the steering until I did the rear sway bar. Now, this is an A3. It's a 4-motion. Same thing would apply for the R32. There's a little bit more weight in the rear axle, so that turn-in is just a little bit more delayed. So this is my A3. It's got 160,000 miles on it. So over the last few months, I've doing a lot of routine maintenance. I replaced some control arms. I put new coilovers in it. I noticed when I was doing the rear suspension that the sway bar itself was seized in the bushing, so it wouldn't rotate. I sprayed some penetrating fluid on it. That didn't work, so hey, it's time to replace it. Gotta replace it, so why not upgrade it? As I'm driving down the road here, let me just turn a little bit. You might be able to see that when I turn the wheel, there's just a little bit of a delay for when the vehicle actually makes the turn. And see if you can see how much the car rolls when I turn that. Now what a stiffer sway bar does in the rear. It stiffens up the rear end, causes the rear of the vehicle to rotate just a little bit quicker, and you get more responsive turn-in. Okay, let's take a look at what's inside the box. So first thing we have, sway bar bushings, and the bar itself. Okay, let's get into the install. The first thing you'll need to do is get the vehicle up off the ground. Now, I don't have a lift yet, so I'm using ramps. If you were to do the rear sway bar end links with the sway bar, you would need to take the wheels off of the car. Now, I already did the end links when I did the coilovers, so I think I could do this with the wheels on the car. You'll need a hammer, a ratchet, a 15mm socket, M6 and M10 triple squares, a 16mm wrench, and an H6 Allen wrench. The first thing I like to do is spray all the bolts I know I'm going to be removing with a penetrating fluid. And you want to let that sit for about 15 minutes before you take the bolts out. Grab your M6 triple square and your 16mm wrench to remove the bolt from the end link, and use your hammer just to tap the bolt out. Now I want to show you here what I mean when I say the bar is seized in the bushing. You can see as I try and rotate the bar, the rubber bushing in the bracket is moving with the bar. Now that's not supposed to happen. The bar should be able to rotate freely in that bushing. Next you'll need your M10 triple square to take the bolts out to hold the bar to the subframe. And once it's free, you just have to wiggle it out from around the exhaust. Let's take a look at these side by side. The new O34 Motorsport bar is considerably thicker and heavier than the old one. The old one's rusted and corroded. I think that's going in the trash. Make sure you grease the bushings before you put the new bar in, that way it won't knock when you're driving down the road. And reinstallation is super easy. Wiggle the bar past the exhaust, line up the brackets. I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the bolts in case I have to take it out again. And you don't want to tighten these up all the way to begin with. Get everything in place nice and loose before you go around and snug everything up. So I'm out on the test drive. What do we think? Is body roll reduced? And is the steering more responsive? Yes and yes. The first thing I noticed was how positive the rear end feels and how the vehicle wants to rotate just a little bit more. If I do a little slalom here, body roll is massively reduced and the steering input is so much more responsive. There's no delay anymore. As soon as I turn the wheel, the vehicle starts to rotate. Now the good thing is about a rear sway bar install, it doesn't affect the stiffness of the suspension. It still rides down the road exactly how it did before. You really feel the performance in the corners. So would I recommend this? Absolutely. For $200-300, 1 or 2 hours work, it makes a huge improvement on the drivability and the fun factor of the car. Now the good thing is about the O34 Motorsport sway bar is they say it can be paired with the OEM front sway bar. The rear sway bar is the only one you need to do. Now I installed this on the softest of the two settings. O34 say that if you install it on the stiffer setting, it can induce just a little bit of lift off oversteer. I don't really want that for a daily driver, and I think on the softest setting, it pairs nicely with the dampening of the current suspension. Okay folks, there you go. Pretty easy install. Took me about an hour. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, like, share. Tune in next time.